Hey everybody, it's Cam here. Today's episode is going to include two Spiffbo finalists, Cold West by Clayton Snyder and The Last Fang of God by Ryan Kirk. I guess I should probably apologize to the two authors if you guys watch this since normally I do an episode per book. But in this case, the combined total number of pages between the two books is under 400. I think the Cold West is 140 and The Last Fang of God is like 250. They're also both standalone books. They don't have anything associated with their other worlds. So because of that, I don't really have the content that for me, normally the meat of all of my episodes is me talking about the world building, because I am a world building fanatic. Like, that is what I get a real kick out of when I read books. Oftentimes, it's a reason why, even if I like a book, there's a good chance that I'm not going to read book two, just because I get my real reading high from reading new books and finding new worlds. It's why, just recently, the Plague of Giants and the second book in that one was such an amazing book because it just kept the world building going, right? And in fact, I felt like it was like pure nothing but world building. We got all the characters out of the way in book one, and then we just got to do nothing but story and learn about different places in the world of Teldwyn for Plague of Giants, right? So these two books, obviously, at 140 and 250 pages long, being standalones in their own world, we don't have that world building element. So I'm going to talk about Cold West first of all, and then I will talk about The Last Fang of God. So Cold West is a grimdark, weird Western. We have a single point of view character. His name is Will Cutter. I kind of imagined him like a slightly younger version of Clint Eastwood in The Unforgiven. He's in his 40s. He's definitely a little bit on the haggard side. He was a soldier in what was a civil war. I kind of think of like Old West technology, maybe American Civil War, but maybe just a little bit farther on. I think he has revolvers with real cartridges, but it sounded like for the most part they were using, the old paper cartridge or the cap and ball style. So we're dealing with that level technology. We kind of have like the eldritch horror style beasts that are involved. The book starts off with Will burying his wife. His two 12-year-old boys are helping him bury his wife. Clearly, we're starting off real grim. I definitely shed a tear right off the bat while reading this book. But he ends up having a buddy of his who comes to his homestead and tells him that he is going to go out for a bounty that will provide enough money for Will and his kids to have money to eat, basically. Will was a bounty hunter and a soldier, and he was much better at those than he was as a farmer, so he really needs this bounty money to, in order to help his kids out. Well, they go to collect this bounty, and everything just goes sideways. I think that's about as far as I can go into the book without starting to give spoilers, which, in this case is probably only like 25 or 30 pages. But if this is a book that you want to read, it only takes a couple of hours. It is very well written, but, my big issue with it is just that it's so fast-paced because of, only being 140 pages long. And I just never really had time to like get that world building that I wanted in. And the thing with it is that like it's a really cool world that he seems to have built. There's magic. You have the Old West. Will is a pretty good character. He does have managed to do something midway through the book in a prison that I felt like in the same situation where it would have been better if the book was 400 or 500 pages long, because it seemed like everything was so rushed and I didn't quite understand why the people did what they did in order to let him, be able to do what he does. There's just two types of magicians, the nulls, which is what Will is. They can cut power away from the people who can bring power in and like throw lightning and stuff. But when you do that, you cut holes into another dimension, and this is where like the true like Cthulhu style eldritch horrors can come into play. All in all, I loved the taste that I got, but I really wanted more to it, right? Just a 140-page standalone book that's not set in any of your other works. In the end, I ended up giving this one a 6.5, and that's mostly because I just didn't have any of that world building element that I wanted. Okay, the second book, The Last Fang of God by Ryan Kirk. Once again, also a standalone, 250 pages long. I'm going to give this one a little bit less of the criticism that I gave to Cold West, in that because it added at least that extra 100 pages, then we got a little bit more of the world building. But same thing, where I do wish that, if you're going to have a single standalone, I personally want that standalone to be beefy. If it's a couple hundred pages long, you're really just running from point A to point B, nonstop. In this case, this book, we kind of have like more of like a tribal feel to the world. I kind of thought like the world really didn't feel like it was very populated. Like it just felt like, you have, in this case, the gods are real. They have people that worship them, that they give runes to, they give like imbued swords, things like that. So you have like a person who's basically your champion, and then all of their tribe that travels around with them. They're constantly fighting with other tribes to for their own power, but also to raise the power of their god. And it kind of felt like where there wasn't a lot of people because of that. I don't know if there are cities somewhere, but in this case, it's pretty sparsely populated world. Our two main characters are Clayton. He's in his 40s. He was the Fang of a god named Vilkas, who they were called the Wolves. So that's where you get the whole Fang. He has a magical sword that is incredibly powerful. It's called Fang. His daughter Sasha is 17 when the book starts. They've been living in the lands of another god after most of his tribe was wiped out. He hasn't told his daughter anything about his past, and she just is trying to live her life. He's just trying to live his life. When his daughter starts to feel sick, at that point they realize that she's been called to go and become a rune master for that god that, basically has no territory left. But if she doesn't go, she's going to die. We find that this is something that happens to, those who can be really powerful with their magic, that you have to go and pass your god's trial, or the magic's just going to overwhelm you and kill you because you can't control it. This one is really fast-paced, obviously at 250 pages long. Clayton and Sasha then end up having to go on a journey, through enemy-infested territory. It's nonstop, action-packed. I did like that element of it, but I didn't really care for Sasha as a character. She's pouty a lot. Like, I understand her whole world got turned upside down. Her dad has lied to her all these years. But the problem that I kind of had with her still, though, is that there's at least 3 or 4 times during their journey where it almost seems like she considers not going forward, right? She's only got 2 or 3 months to live if she doesn't. Yet she's still constantly being like, why should I follow you? Or why should I do this? She's super powerful. She seems to be really strong-willed. She doesn't seem like she doesn't want to live. So it kind of irritated me anytime she did that, right? I mean, I know personally, if I wanted to live, I might have, even if I hated my dad, I'd be like, okay, obviously we got to get moving and we got to do whatever we got to do so that I can live. And there's times when, even though she seems to have that I want to live attitude, she's still just kind of like, well, I don't know if I want to follow you because you're an asshole. It's like, well, your alternative is death, so deal with it, right? I realize she's a teenager, but, sometimes that's why I don't like teenage characters. I like the teenage characters who act older, or who just are like, okay, we got to do what we got to do, right? It's why, even though Wheel of Time is my favorite series, I really hate Perrin. I mean, I always have hated Perrin. He's just, I just want to be a simple blacksmith and let everyone leave me alone. I don't want to have to lead these people. Well, you're incredibly powerful and you have the ability to help people, right? And you don't want to do it. And that's kind of why I've always hated Perrin, and that's why I didn't particularly care for Sasha. Clayton, he's an unreliable narrator. He lies a lot, But all in all, like, he's super powerful. He eventually does what he needs to do. But same thing with him, is there's a couple times he doesn't want to use the sword because it's super powerful. And I get it that it brings attention of other powerful people who can feel the sword just being drawn. But, there comes a time when they're being attacked and he still tries not to use a sword and almost ends up, getting everyone killed, and same kind of thing. Everyone seems to be doing their best to make their lives harder as they go forward. I gave this one a 7. maybe more on like the 7.5 side, because I did give it a 4-star on Goodreads. So let's go 7.5. I enjoyed the book, like I said, but I didn't love it. And I actually don't know that in this case, I think 250 pages was probably okay for the format we had, because everything is moving forward. We don't have to worry about like a wider political storytelling, right? Because of the way that we just deal with 2 characters and they need to get from point A to point B. But at the same time, I just, I'm going to admit it. I do not love standalone books at all, unless they are part of a wider series. That whole, both of these books being so short, especially Cold West, makes it so that I had a little bit of, negative impression just from the very beginning, that I wanted more world building, and I knew that I wasn't going to get it. And I knew that I couldn't go read other books and get that world building, right? If Cold West had been if Will Cutter had, during the war, had played a big role in other books that Clayton Snyder had written, and this was just, a standalone off on its own, then I probably would have loved this book in that case, right? Because I would have had that backstory. I would have known all of the characters that come into to play, who Will Cutter has had, 20, 30 years of history with. And I would have enjoyed that much more. The writing in both of these books is, amazing. And I got into that movie in my mind with both books immediately. So I can see why, each of them has their fans. But I don't think I personally would have chosen, such short standalone books as my own SPIFBO finalists if we'd have gone that route. I will say that both of the books were good enough as far as their storytelling and their writing that I absolutely plan in the new year sometime to read other books by Clayton Snyder and Ryan Kirk. There are, especially Ryan Kirk seems to have an awful lot of books out and available. So the writing is good enough, and I enjoyed the storytelling style enough to want to read his. And I'm going to be real honest. Like, Clayton Snyder's writing, there are individual scenes in this, in Cold West, that I really enjoyed. We're talking like I could vividly see the scene in my mind, just like it was a movie, right? I had, an almost Unforgiven, a little bit younger than Clint Eastwood is in Unforgiven, maybe more like his spaghetti western styles. But I could just imagine the way it was written, like every bit of the scene that happened, So the writing is great. It's just 140 pages is too short for me and for what I like. I like my long epic fantasies, or I like anything that I like. I just want the world building. And in this case, that's going to be my biggest complaint about the book. I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season. I look forward to finishing up my last couple of SPIFBO books in January. And then I'm loving seeing other people's reviews. I already had one, a devastating one to me. Cassidy with her not liking my favorite book of the year, which is one of the SPIFBO finalists. But I think that's part of what's just so enjoyable about doing these ones for me personally, especially since I'm not a judge. And, my own scores don't mean anything. But I do have my favorites, and I like to see how what my thoughts stack up versus all of the real judges do. So I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season, and thanks for watching.